Are you there?
Yes,
Hello.
we can.
If it
Can you hear us?
matters, yeah, this is Ron. I tried to get on as a member of the GUIAC and it would not recognize me. I had to join as just joining the meeting as an attendee.
Oh,
She
okay.
may be having problems.
The same thing happened to me also, and I had to download everything on my computer.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. You will, did you already email?
Yes, I've resent the link to members who weren't present now. With the password and the link, they should be able to join pretty easily. I'll reach out to Jackie again to see if she's having any problems.
Thank you both. That's helpful.
Hmm.
There's Jackie. Hi, Jackie. Good morning.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late. Computers.
That is okay. We do have a quorum now, so and we're at about 9:04 by my clock. So if we'd like to get started, we can go ahead and do that.
Okay. I'm calling the meeting of the Douglas AMA Groundwater Users Advisory Council to order. Today is Friday, September 20th, and the time is 9:04. I'm Jackie Watkins, Chair. Would council members present please introduce themselves? Joni
This is
Giacomino. Oh, I'm sorry.
Ron Bemis.
Elise Moore.
I think Joni called in. Is Aaron online?
I don't believe we have Aaron online. And
Yes,
I know. Oh,
that's Aaron.
hi.
Okay. So we have a quorum. Would ADWR staff members please introduce themselves?
I'm Nick Mason. I'm the GUAC coordinator for ADWR.
I'm Madison Moreno. I am the AMA Establishment Coordinator.
My name is Natalie Mest. I'm the AMA Director.
I am Casey Allman. I am the AMA Establishment Supervisor.
And I'm Lucas Bennett, Deputy Counsel with ADWR.
Okay. If audience members are interested in introducing themselves, please type your name and affiliation into the chat box. So now we're at agenda item 2, meeting logistics. Nick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. Before we get started, I'd like to go over some meeting logistics. If any members of the public would like to speak to the council, the call for the public will give you time to do so. Please indicate in the chat that you would like to speak and you will be unmuted. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to ADWR's website and YouTube page once the recording is generated. Presenters, please add to the next slide when presenting your agenda item. And finally, if you're having any technical difficulties, please contact our help desk. Their contact information can be found on the screen. Thank you. That is all.
Okay. Thank you, Nick. Agenda item 3, the Douglas AMA First Management Plan Information Draft. Madison?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Council. Thank you all for being here this morning. Kind of on a short notice, so thank you, everyone, for being here for this. First of all, I am Madison Moreno, the AMA Establishment Coordinator, and I will be going over just some updates that we had to the draft management plan in response to some of these informal comments that we've received. So I'll start with some of these just timeline portions for the adoption. So with the designation of the AMA being December 1st, 2022, we have our tentative adoption of the initial management plan as December 1st, 2024. With the effective date for those conservation requirements happening in January 1st, 27. This is just the statute that says that we need to follow the management plan as closely as practical to the program set in the initial management plan statutes. The main changes that I will be going over today have to do with the executive summary and the introduction and the agricultural chapter. This is just explaining nothing much has changed other than some slight analysis of the goal in the executive summary. This just gives background of the 1980 Groundwater Management Act and the creation of the Douglas Active Management Area and stakeholder engagement in the development process of how we've gotten this far. The goal of the Douglas AMA is, as quoted here, the management goal of the Douglas AMA is to support the general economy and welfare of water users in the basin by reducing the rate of aquifer depletion by an amount established in the first management plan and by additional reductions established in each subsequent management plan every 10 years thereafter. We're going to go over that rate of aquifer depletion. Here we have an updated chart that expresses we've kind of created a net overdraft trend line. As you can see, it's slowly increasing, with that also of the outflows increasing. The grayed out colors towards the end are projections, where we're seeing that slowly decrease with a change from 340 acre feet per year to 640 acre feet per year. We changed this with the intention of looking at the amount of being withdrawn annually, taking into consideration. So we took that as through comments that we received by the public and changed that to 640 acre feet per year.
So just to add to that a little bit, this chart that you're looking at shows overdraft over time in the Douglas Basin. Obviously, a lot of this is estimates, and a lot of this first management plan is really a transitional thing. But we really wanted to think about the comments that we received, and in evaluating the comments that we received, we realized that the initial goal that we had put forth, the 340 acre feet per year, the change of 340 acre feet per year, really only reflected the conservation programs in the management plan. And there are other things that occur in an active management area besides the conservation associated with those programs in the management plan. So we wanted to make sure that we were also reflecting things like additional recharge, the potential utilization of effluent, and that type of thing. And so what this chart and this projection, that kind of lighter portion at the end is the projection. What this really reflects is thinking about the AMA holistically, to increasing the target by thinking about the AMA holistically, and also thinking about this plan as really a transitional plan. We're going from an era where overdraft was increasing over time and changing that directionality entirely so that we're bringing overdraft down over time. So I think really those trends are the important things that I would really want to point to there, is that we are changing the direction of that trend with this management plan.
See the date.
With the, now we'll switch into the agricultural chapter with the comments that we received and also additional analysis of all the submitted applications that we have received now that we are past the deadline. We took into account the acreage of how we were creating these tiers of irrigation efficiency. So you can see on the left side of the screen is their initial proposal, where we had 10 to 100 acres, 100 to 150, and then 150 plus. You can see it's kind of staggered. It's not as, I guess, equal on the side of the 100, the middle range of that. Our modification, we took into account from comments and also those additional applications that we received. The majority of applications we received were relatively under 100 acres. So we took that and changed it to 100, 100 to 100, or to 500, and then 500 plus, with 80, 83, and 85% irrigation efficiencies respectively on that. I think it creates a better look to see where these acreages are coming from, and being able to have farms that are over 500 acres with the ability to have that 85% irrigation efficiencies. This was a change due to new information, new data that we received, and also any comments that we received about this.
Something I'd want to emphasize here. So as you're looking at this, the bar represents the number of applications kind of in each category. So the left-hand side being our initial proposal, the right-hand side being the updated proposal. Something I'll note with what was on the left-hand side is we set those ranges at the beginning with the information that we had at the time, which was, I think, on the order of 50 applications, and we now have close to 200. So with that new data set, and also in reviewing the comments that we received, we wanted to make sure we were being responsive here. So kind of looking at how all of this lands, we adjusted those ranges to have a much more incremental approach over the categories, rather than it being a little bit disjointed, if you will. Something I'd like to note too is that if you look at, on the right-hand side, if you look at the number of applications in that smallest category, in that category of less than 100 acres, it is by far the highest number of applications, but that represents less than 20% of the total acreage in the basin. Whereas on the far right-hand side, that is only, I think that's around 10 total applications, and it represents 44% of the total acres in the basin. So we really kind of, we tried to find a pretty even distribution. There's also about 40% of the acres in that middle category, in that 10 to 500. So we're really looking for kind of an even distribution of the different sizes of acres, and trying to find something that made sense given the data that we have available to us.
And that's all I have for the informal draft updates.
So before we send things back to the council, you can, whichever side you want to be on, basic. Before we send things back to the council, we wanted to have this meeting to make sure that we were checking back in and providing some transparency in some of our decision making. We have been so appreciative of the level of engagement that this council has had with the management plan, with the level of engagement the community has had with this management plan. And so we wanted to make sure that we were providing some explanation and allowing some additional time for questions on how we are responding to some of the comments that we received. So with the little bit of an overview that Madison provided here, and thank you for that. And any additional discussion here, we're hoping to provide some of that transparency. So with that, I'd gladly hand it back over to the council for any discussion and questions or comments.
Thank you. This is a call to the council for discussion for the council members. Personally, I like this. I think it is better. On the 642 acre feet reduction per year, is there any way to, like at year 5, to have that increase? I mean, that just seems like a small amount of reduction for overdraft. Also because, there's a lot of young orchards that we have, And from my understanding is the water authority, that water duty that we will get for those will be on a full, you know, a 10-year orchard instead of, you know, if they're only 2 or 3-year-old trees. So some of that will be increasing on the amount that we have going out today. So is there a way at year 5 to do that? I don't think it's been done in any of the other plans, but.
Very honestly, this management goal that has this quantitative target is also different than any of the other management plans or management goals. So what you're suggesting there is certainly unique, but I guess what I can say there is that there is a mechanism to create modifications to a given management plan between kind of the 10-year periods. That is something we've done in the other AMAs with other management plans over time, is done formal modifications to the management plan kind of in the middle of the cycle. So that's certainly something that as we get additional data, as we see how this starts to play out, we could certainly adjust partway through. We could certainly consider adjusting. We could have a conversation at that point about considering adjusting, excuse me.
Yeah, especially after once the groundwater basin model is completed, which takes 2 to 3 years probably to get done, we would know more to pinpoint the areas that have increased depletion of the groundwater compared to other areas of the basin. Okay, any other council members?
Jackie, this is Ron. Can you hear
Go
me?
ahead, Ron. Yes.
I was just curious to ask Natalie, how are they monitoring the recharge within the watershed and how that will affect annual adjustments, or if it will?
That is a really good question, Ron, and thank you for that question. Right now, the recharge values that we have are fairly rough estimates, at least partially because that model has not been completed. So we do have some estimate of kind of natural recharge, mountain front recharge, stream bed recharge from washes and whitewater draw and that type of thing. But those values are rough because we don't have the groundwater model completed yet. As our hydrology team works through their process of actually building and calibrating that model or adjusting that model to better reflect real values, we will get a better picture of what those recharge values are actually for the basin. So we'll have much better estimates as that model is developed.
With that stated, are you monitoring just the rainfall and snowfall on the watershed, on what you get in based on what kind of discharge you get off of it? I imagine it's a very complex model. But I have people asking me that quite regularly, and I was just looking for any information you might have.
Yeah, it's a really good question. So we certainly do look at weather type data, but a large part of the input to those groundwater models is both reported water use information, which we're obviously going to be working through and expanding within the Douglas AMA, and also physical measurements of well water levels across the basin. I know we had Sarah Lang, one of our hydrologists, at our last meeting. We could certainly have Sarah or another person from our hydrology team come back at another meeting and talk a little bit more about some of those data collection efforts that our hydrology team does on an ongoing basis around the state.
Then one last question. Is there any opportunity within the management plan to look at minor watersheds within the basin to, if, say, the west side of Whitewater Draw is really overdrawing, to reduce their usage as opposed to reducing the usage on the whole watershed, or is it one size fits all?
That's a really good question. And it might be something that we would be better equipped to look at and understand once that groundwater model is completed. For the time being, we have typically looked at overdraft on kind of a water budget level, which is to say that it's at the basin level. We're just looking at total inflows to the basin, total outflows from the basin. And so we don't at this time have more of that kind of geographic specificity, if you will, where we can really tell where those kind of areas that might be drawing down more quickly than others are. We will be able to tell, we will be able to see some of that geographic specificity with the groundwater model. That is a spatial type of model.
Thank you very much, Natalie. That's all I have, Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any other council members' comments?
Yeah, this is Aaron.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I had just posed the question about there was like that one piece on the well spacing requirement, and I felt like there was a lot of ambiguity on what that means. It kind of refers into see if I can find it here. Essentially, the wells team would do an assessment and make that determination, but it just seems very ambiguous, like who or what, is there even a process? So that was a question that I had.
Sure. So in AMAs generally, there are rules related to well spacing requirements. So in all AMAs, including Douglas, outside of the management plan, there is a legal structure or regulatory requirements regarding well spacing or what we call well impact analysis. The kind of background of that is that any new non-exempt well is required to have what's called a well impact analysis that basically ensures that that well is not going to cause unreasonable harm to surrounding wells. The language in the management plan mirrors some of the language in the Santa Cruz AMA management plan, where we're really looking at some more localized type impacts related to well spacing and that type of thing. Excuse me. So maybe just to clarify, what the language in the management plan is really referencing is not kind of the standard well spacing. That standard well spacing requirement applies in every AMA, and that still stands. The language in the management plan is really referencing that there's the potential for the Douglas AMA to consider additional requirements if that's something that we would like to develop. What I will say there is that more specificity on those additional requirements is something that we would really want to consider in the context of a groundwater model. Again, because you're thinking about spatial impacts of pumping, it's really hard to do that type of thorough analysis and think more deeply about some of those policies in the absence of a model, in the absence of a groundwater flow model.
On the well spacing, so that's for non-exempt new wells. But if there's an existing irrigation well and you're just replacing that, in the statute it says you can drill a replacement well within 660 feet of the existing non-exempt well. So for a replacement well, do you have to do a well impact analysis, or is that just you can do a replacement well if it's drilled within 660 feet of the existing well?
You can, the well impact analysis requirement is for new wells, so that would not apply to replacement wells in most cases.
Thank you.
Yeah, so Aaron once again, to Jackie's point, I think that probably something we should look over a little more. And then also to Ron's point, looking at the different regions and like closer to Whitewater Draw, we're shallow, and in terms of just dropping significant hundreds of feet beyond the other ones, that would just be, I don't know if this is where we talk about those things, but yeah, I just, in general, a little bit more clarification and discussion maybe about that point.
And I think some of that would be, Aaron, can be answered once we have the groundwater model and the geology to know if there's different lenses of aquifers down there that we're drilling into. But I think, yeah, I mean, we're not going to have a lot of answers done until the groundwater modeling is completed.
Something we might be able to do is invite someone from our wells team to come talk about that standard process of well impact analysis as well.
Yeah, because I don't really understand how they do that, but that would be interesting to know, to get more information on that.
Jackie, this is Ron. If I could ask another question.
Yes.
In some of the wells we've had drilled here, the thought came to mind, is there any way to license a specific aquifer? Like there's farmers here that are pumping from 1,000 feet, 400 feet, and the shallower well at less than 100. Hydrologically, is there any way that, I mean, mechanically you could do that. You could just perforate down to the 1,000-foot level, at the 1,000-foot level. Is there any opportunity for that amount of precision in water rights? As more of a curiosity question.
So not really. Our statutory structure is really based on water that is underground, defined to the basin level. So there was a process back in the 1980s that delineated the boundaries of all of the basins around the state. And that was on a surface level definition. So there's not like a vertical, I'm sorry, excuse me. There's not any kind of like vertical definition or delineation of different aquifers on that vertical scale. So and maybe Anthony can say this a little more eloquently than I can, but there's not really anything in our statutory structure that would allow something like that, to my knowledge.
Yeah, Anthony Ferrano, Deputy Counsel at ADWR. That's absolutely right. And I mean, you know, anybody that's been involved in stream adjudications knows how hard Arizona courts have differentiating simply between what is surface water and what is groundwater. So, you know, the difficulties that would lie in and, you know, legally proving up that one person is tapping into one aquifer, but, you know, as opposed to another would be pretty difficult. But regardless, as it stands, unfortunately, we don't have any statutory structure, you know, to operate something like that within.
It sounds like it would probably be impossible to develop that structure, even if statutorily they asked you to.
It seems like it's challenging, yeah.
Oh, thank you very much, Jackie.
Thank you. Anybody? Any other council members? Okay. Hearing no, this is a call to the public. The public, if you type something into the chat box, they will unmute you.
Seeing no messages in the chat box currently.
Okay, thank you. Unless there is an objection, I will adjourn the meeting. Hearing no objections, the meeting is adjourned at 9:32. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.